What's up guys, Jason Cardamone here. I have something very special for you today. I'm gonna prove to you that you can develop any skill in any activity, whether it's business or sports or family, spiritual, financial, whatever it is, whatever you're trying to do. I'm gonna prove to you so you can no longer have that little inner voice saying, oh, well, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not this, I'm not that, or whatever those limiting beliefs you have. We're gonna do a good damage to those and just destroy some of those limiting beliefs with what I'm about to share with you. And this will particularly help those of you that wanna know why. So I've really, I'm almost 39 next month, and I've realized the past probably 6 to 12 months it's been creeping up more and more that I work best when I know why I need to do something. So if I ever take shortcuts, it's always because I didn't think there was a real reason. I thought I could like outsmart the system. When I really learn the reasons of why or why not to do certain things like running training plans or business activities or whatever, as I understand that more, that actually provides some of the fuel for me to be like, oh, I understand why, now I can do activity X or Y. So we're gonna talk about that and really what happens as you develop skill. And I'll just share with you guys, I'm gonna share with you life experience here, but also a big chunk of some of the recent parts of what I'm gonna share with you comes from a book called The Talent Code. And it's one of my best books of all times. I should have majored in psychology, and I should have followed. I didn't know what I was doing back in college. I thought I was supposed to be this computer guy, and I wanted something challenging. I didn't realize psychology was where my real love, my real passion was, and but I'm thankful I'm discovering it now. And so we're really going to dive into the brain and what's really happening when you develop skill. And this doesn't matter whether you're talking about like swinging a tennis racket and putting topspin on a ball, or backspin, or just a flat out smash, or we're talking about business building activities, getting traffic, learning things, whatever it is. This applies to your muscular system as far as skills are developed, sports, things like that. It applies to how babies learn to walk. It applies to how your brain thinks. It applies to your memory. It applies to your retention of learning new things. It applies to taking action on any skill set. So we're gonna dive right into it. So I have a totally separate video. I'm not going into details around the 4 stages of competence, but you're gonna see exactly what's happening behind the scenes and how you go from, I was gonna write them on the board, but I wanna use this for other things. So just real quickly, the 4 stages of competence are, or consciousness. The first one is unconscious incompetence. It means you're not aware of how bad you are at anything. You're just not even aware because you don't even think about it. So the next level 2, and there's 4 levels, number 2 is conscious incompetence. It means you're very aware of how bad you are at something. So this is when you're first starting to do something and just like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. Like some of you guys don't type, with the home keys or whatever it's called. I'm blazing fast, like 100 words a minute like that now. I remember when I was starting out, when I first learned it, because I first learned like this and I was pretty fast that way, because I've done it a lot. So that's going to be a recurring theme. You're going to see doing something a lot. So I remember when I was first learning to keep your little index fingers on the J and the K, I don't even know where they're at. It's unconscious incompetence now. But whatever keys, the D and the J, I guess it is, those little bumps that are on there, you're supposed to feel for that. I remember starting to learn that, and it was so slow and frustrating because I was conscious, I was aware of how bad I was at that. And then after a little bit of practice and doing the P and the P and the P and the Q and the Q and the Y and the Y and the Y, and you do all these things in space and space, you do all this enough, and pretty soon I start to get consciously competent, which means I'm aware that I'm getting better and better at it. I'm aware of how good I am, so to say. And then you get to the point like I am now, where I am unconsciously competent as a typer, which means I'm not even aware of how good I am at typing. And here's why that works like that, guys. So one of the one of the driving functions of your brain, and this works in your whole life, and I can prove it to you right now. The whole last 5 or so minutes of this video, have you been aware of keeping track of your heartbeat and making sure it's still beating and it's beating the right amount compared if you're sitting or standing or moving around? Maybe my heart rate's a little higher right now because I'm moving my hands so much compared if I'm sitting there on a computer not doing as much, compared to when I'm running slower or faster. You don't have to think about your heartbeat. That is an unconsciously competent activity of your brain and your body function. It's worrying about how fast to pump your heart and make sure you're not losing fingers because you're not getting enough blood flow to a finger, for example. So that's an example right there. There are so many things happening right now, including your ability to understand the words coming. Do you understand the words coming out of my mouth? That's from a movie. So your ability to do that is unconsciously competent. Now, if you're like a 6-month-old, you can't understand the majority of the words I'm saying because you haven't practiced enough. You're somewhere in conscious incompetence and even unconscious competence. Babies are aware when people are speaking, but sometimes it's someone in another room and they're just not even tuned in. They're focused on something in front of them. They can't even hear things at the same time. And so that's because they haven't developed the ability to understand letters and put those letters together to mean words, and put the words together to mean phrases, and put the phrases together to mean emotions and visions and pictures and all the things that are happening to you as you're hearing my voice and watching maybe some of you watching the video, some of you are just listening to it in the background. And so all of those processes are an example of moving down the stages of consciousness. And ultimately, your body wants everything to be unconsciously competent. And what that means is it wants everything to be on autopilot. There's major parts of how marketing works, of how your whole life works. Your body just wants everything to be automatic. That's basically how your whole life is run. So another way to look at it, and I think this is a lot more memorable and a cool way, I look at everything as like, our brains, our body, they're just lazy. It wants to put everything on autopilot, and it's actually not your brain that's lazy, it's your will or your conscious, or I don't even know the right terms for it. And I have this weird itch on my arm here. I'm actually gonna lick it real fast to get rid of it. Must be some dry skin or something. So isn't that crazy? I want to take some pause here, do some crazy things in the video to get your attention back here. Now that I have it, I want you to realize that your brain is this amazing thing made of, 86 million neurons. Maybe it's 100, maybe it's 60 million, maybe it's 200. There's just guesstimates so far because we don't have, even with our little electron microscopes, our technology only goes so far to measure how many neurons are in your brain. So we're going to talk about this thing called a neuron and what happens. So you have 86 millions of these things. It's basically, they guesstimate the number of stars in the universe or whatever is like 100 to 200 billion. So you have as many cells in your brain as stars that exist in the entire universe, as far as science and everything everybody can figure out. As far as they can tell in your brain, as far as they can measure stars, whatever all those guesstimations all mean. So what it really means is the number is so high, it's something like if you were to count one neuron every second, it would take you some 100,000 million years or something. I forgot the numbers, but it's something so big that it's this huge number you can't even imagine how big it is. So you have to realize you have the most amazing computer in the world. It's right here. It's not the thing sitting on your desk. It's not the Big Blue that beat Gary Kasparov in chess years ago in the 80s or 90s or whatever. It's not the computers of today. It's the things happening right here between your brains that's white and gray matter. And we're going to talk about what those mean and what's really happening. But you have to realize the primary function is to make everything autopilot and automatic. And you can consciously direct your brain to get certain things to go on autopilot. A really good example, and I wish I could scroll, I wish I had a button or a camera person to like scroll the camera down so you can see my feet right now. But a great example is soccer. So I played soccer for more than 30 years of my life. I haven't touched a ball much in the past 5 years. But I guarantee you right now, you can put a ball at my feet, and you can put a ball at the foot of any average, of you, and you can stand right next to me, and I don't care who you are on my entire list, or maybe this is on YouTube, I don't even know where this video is going. It's definitely going to my list. And I guarantee you, you can kick the ball, and I can kick the ball, and if we're trying to hit a certain target and do a certain thing, I guarantee I can do it better with way less effort. And the reason for that is because I've done it for so long. A lot of soccer skills for me are unconscious competence. Some of them are conscious competence. For a lot of you, a lot of them are conscious incompetence and unconscious incompetence. It means there are certain soccer skills you don't even know right now. Like you may, let's say here's the ball right here, you may think kicking a ball with your toe, like here's your foot, and let's say your leg comes down here and here's your foot, right? So here's the bottom of your foot, here's the top of your foot, your shoelaces up here. You may think to kick a soccer ball, you're supposed to kick it with your toe like this. There actually is a skill of that. You use it probably about 1% or less of your game. And depending on the games and the situations and stuff like that, maybe 2%, but a lot of you guys would do that more than 50% of the time. How do I know that? Because I've coached kids and adults in soccer for decades. And so the reality is there's a lot of other more skills like kicking it with the shoelaces or the side, the inside or the outside of your foot. Those are much more accurate ways than using your toe. You may not have known that before. So before right now, if you didn't know that, that was unconscious incompetence. You didn't even know that was the proper way to kick a ball. Now that you know it and you go to kick a ball, now you're gonna be like, well, how do I bend my ankle down? That hurts my ankle. Or how do I do this and it hurts my foot when I hit the ball? That's all, there's this whole world that you have to understand. And we're just talking about kicking a little ball. It's like a simple little activity, right? Same thing applies to tennis, everything else. And I want to bring in business examples as much as we can, but I want to talk about what's happening inside your brain and why I know right now for a fact I will put thousands of dollars on the line. I'll put all my money on the line. I'll put every dollar I can possibly find in the house and everything I have. I'll put it on the line. I'll put a soccer ball down next to any person getting this video, and I know 99% of the time I'm gonna beat them out. Whatever our task is with the soccer ball, I'll beat them. And here's why. It's because I've developed skill, and I can say the same thing now. I can say it. I couldn't say it back in the day. Say the same thing with internet marketing. I can say the same thing with psychology principles and leadership and understanding personality types, and like what if we were to do like selling, have a sales competition. Been doing that forever, so I can take any of these activities that I've done a lot of and put money down and know I'm going to beat out most people. Copywriting, whatever it is. And so that, I'm not saying that to be arrogant about these things, because there's other things we could bring up that some of you would kick my butt at. Even a couple of you running, I'll beat most of you guys. There's a couple of you guys that can still beat me. And let's say hitting a baseball. I'm decent at that. I have decent hand-eye coordination. But there's some of you that have played baseball way more than I have, so you will hit a baseball a lot better and a lot more accurate, and you'll win all the money in those bets. And the same thing, there's certain parts of internet marketing and business and family and everything. But what's really happening at the deeper level, because some of you guys are still, you're looking at all this, you're like, yeah, but you were born to be a soccer player. If you actually knew my soccer background, that is the furthest thing from the truth, the furthest possible thing. I was horrible at soccer all the way up till the age of 13. And the only way I ever started getting better was because I started practicing more at the age of 13. That's it. I was horrible up to that point. Uncoordinated, and I got started late, because most people that got to the levels I got to, they were playing they like a lot at like 6 and 7. I quit for a year early on. And I'm not gonna, I have a whole like hour YouTube video or something on my whole soccer background, but the reality is now I'm in the top like fraction of 1% of people on the entire planet of people that can play soccer. Fraction of like just a tiny little like out of 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 people, I'm in the top couple. And that happened even starting late, like around 13 years old. Now granted, yeah, it's like all these years of playing. I did start when I was 6, but I didn't play much, I didn't practice much all the way up till I was 13. And so you can develop any skill set. So I don't care if you're looking at, well, Jason, you've been doing internet network marketing for 8 years and I just got started. I don't care. What can you do in the next 8 years? You can make millions and millions and millions of dollars. And you can actually do it a lot faster because I didn't know all of this stuff when I was learning. I didn't know all these principles that I teach you guys all the time. So let's dive into it now because I've been excited to do this the whole time. So we talked about there's billions, tens of billions, maybe 100 billion of these little cells in your brain. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but basically we're going to talk about how, you have these pockets. Let's look at one cell and what really happens. So I'm not going to go into detail in the picture, so if you guys know some of this stuff, I'm going to leave some pieces out because the details don't matter as far as some of the bigger picture details. So you have this, let's just call this one of your neurons. We'll just put an N. So you have like 86 billion of these things in your whole brain, right? So what happens when you try to do any activity, including learning letters or words, doing internet marketing, playing soccer, whatever, what's happening is that these electrical impulses are flying all around your brain. So what happens is a neuron, it sends something down this little tube, basically, and it ends up going to another neuron. Now I'm making this kind of a dumbed down graphic, so again, not going into details for some of you that already understand, brain function and, deeper parts of psychology. So now this is just 2 we have pictured out of 86 billion. So let's first of all talk about what just happens. The most basic function in your brain is that an electrical impulse gets generated somehow right here and it travels down here to this one, and when it gets there, that gives some kind of signal out. Okay, and that signal could be make a heartbeat, it could be are we too hot or too cold, are we holding a pin the right way, are we writing on the board like this, or like this, or like this, or with this hand, or this, or like this, backward, whatever, all these things, there's like thousands and probably hundreds of thousands of neurons firing off while I'm just demonstrating all these different ways just to hold a pin in my hand. And so the most basic level is an electrical pulse being sent from one neuron to another. That's the basics. Now what at a bigger picture, you have to realize we have like billions and billions, right? So what's really happening is that we have a whole network of these things all over the place. And so these are all little neurons, and what I have I'm gonna have like around 20 or something by the time I'm done here. So let's say you have to get to a certain, let's say that, getting an item, finding an item to sell online or a service or a product or whatever. Let's say that whole process, finding a good item that's gonna be profitable, make you money, stuff like that. Let's say that process has to go from neuron A here to neuron Z. We'll say A and Z, and it just has to get there. So the first time you sit down to do that, what happens is, so what has to happen? We have to have an electrical impulse get from here to here. Well, what really happens is that it finds different pathways to get there, and it doesn't just go straight there, because there's all these little subparts that have to function and like bring in data from your memories, from what you've learned, from your, what are you actively doing? What do your muscles have to do? So all these things are working together to make an impulse, and maybe it first goes like this, goes up here, and it's real slow. By the way, when you're first starting out, this pulse travels at about 2 miles per hour over like brand new territory, we'll call it, okay? So at 2 miles an hour, we go up here, and then we come down here, and then let's say it's, because we're trying to get over there. By the way, your goal is a brain-seeking mechanism. This is how we're designed. It's how everyone works. So we're not really going in a straight line, are we? We're trying to get over there, but we're like, oh man, okay. And then this, oh, we made great progress there, but our brain doesn't know the fastest way to get there. We're going at 2 miles an hour. We go, whoa, man, we went way backwards. And let's say we eventually get there. And so 2 miles an hour across all those things, whatever it took X amount of time, whatever it took us to finally find that first item, traveling, making all these mistakes at 2 miles an hour. So what happens is we have that process. So now, the more we do this and the more we're doing the same thing, what does our brain want to do? It wants to make everything autopilot, and it wants to make it way faster. So this was really painful, right? It took forever. We finally found it. We're like, oh good, we finally got it, cool. We have this celebration. So what's happening is as we continue to do this process over and over, the process of whatever, walking, running, kicking a soccer ball in a certain way, doing any business activity, relating with your spouse, your children, learning about other people, learning how to get traffic online, build a list, how to do marketing, learning how to drop ship, learning how to lead people, all of that, whatever the goal is, it starts out and it's slow. And so what happens over time is that pretty soon our brain will find, and it doesn't really look like this, but I'm gonna give you guys an example here. What really happens is that the brain finally finds a way that's one of the most efficient paths, and it's not always directly, but you see how much more direct the red path is? And when we're first doing this path, this is still going at 2 miles an hour because these are brand new circuits, we'll call them. We're gonna call this a circuit, coming from one, send an electrical current, go to another. That's one circuit, okay? So to go across all these circuits, we still move at 2 miles an hour, but watch how much faster it was and more direct. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things. This more improved. So let's call that a more optimal route, okay? Well, the first time we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 instead of 6. And notice how some of these were long and went backwards. So it's actually probably more than 2 or 3 times slower, or a lot more, just from finding the right path to make the right connections. So now that our brain has finally kind of found the right connections, here's where things get really amazing. So again, we went at 2 miles an hour, we have the most optimal path now, right? Here's what starts to happen, is that we're gonna come up here, and I'll draw this. What happens is that there's this stuff in your brain, it's called myelin. And this stuff is basically, you want to grow myelin, and you want more myelin than everybody else in the world. It's even shown, the more myelin you grow, the higher your IQ is. So a lot of people used to believe IQ is just like your genetics, whatever your brain is naturally born with. That's not true, not even close to true. What's been proven is that IQ can actually be developed, including EQ, emotional intelligence, including everything in your life can be grown to a higher degree. So if you've always thought, oh, I'm dumb, or I'm not smart, or I'm just below average, I got F's in school, I got D's and C's, whatever you think you got in school, all that was just because you didn't understand this. By the way, just the awareness of this process, they've actually done experiments with this. They've gone into kids, they taught some kids, this is how your brain works, and you have to make mistakes, and you have to do this to create what I'm about to show you, to create more myelin. They've taken other kids and not taught them that. The ones that understand this process are the people that persisted and had much, much better results in tons of different case studies, like double blind, all that crazy stuff. So you guys have to realize, just by knowing what I'm about to teach you, you can go out and completely, really transform and change your life here. So, sorry, I see my kids running around outside here. So here's the deal. And sorry, I paused there. My son's not supposed to be climbing over the fence, and I have a feeling he just did, so I'm gonna see if he comes back, or he's gonna be in trouble, because he knows better. So anyway, here we go. So here's because he has to learn this stuff too, right? He has to make the mistakes here, and he has to learn the correct paths. I've only told him once, and apparently that's not enough for a 9-year-old, or at least that 9-year-old. So here's what myelin does, guys. As this goes at 2 miles an hour, there's this stuff called myelin that starts to wrap around this nerve fiber. So what it does, it basically insulates it. So when you first do this path, and then we do it again, your brain's like, hey, this seems like a tiny little stream that we want to turn into like the biggest roaring river in the world. We want to go from like, you know, what did I hear it explained as? From like old school, like super slow internet, like the modems you had back in the late 80s, early 90s, for those of you that were online, compared to like the high-speed fiber optic things we have now. That's what your brain wants to do. So it starts to wrap this myelin stuff basically around the fiber here. And it starts off real little like this. And it basically comes in little, what some people call like sausages. So it looks like these little links of sausage on a line going all the way down. And I guess, just so you guys can see it, I guess I'll just keep drawing the little sausage links all the way over. So we have our little links here. And so when you get myelin like this, the speed, the signal here, can actually start to travel faster than 2 miles an hour because it's insulated. What the myelin is, the green stuff I'm drawing, it's actually just like fatty insulation. But it's just like any circuit. You guys know, like I could take any of these cords. Any cord in any of these cords. So what is a cord here? Do I have any that actually show you? I probably have one somewhere, guys. If I would have thought ahead, I would have demoed this and cut open a cord for you. But I'm not cutting out this headset, even though this is my junky headset. So inside of this plastic right here is actually an electrical wire that transfers the signal from these pieces that comes up through here, coming up and goes in right here. But this plastic casing inside of this is an electrical wire. So your brain works exactly like that, where this is like the plastic surrounding on the outside. What happens, why do you have that insulation? Part of it's like protect you from shock and stuff like that, but insulation helps electricity travel faster. So what happens is the signal can go across this and get there faster. And so it can start to go faster than 2 miles an hour. Now there's something else amazing that starts to happen too, and we're gonna cover that. Because it doesn't just go faster, it also starts to hit more frequently. So I don't have the exact timings like I'm telling you 2 miles an hour. But as you develop more and more myelin, the signal starts to go faster and faster, and it can start to go more frequently. So let's say as you're practicing a skill more and more, you're getting better and better at it, it's starting to get like super insulated. And they actually look more like sausages when they're fully developed, but I'm kind of exaggerating here so you guys can get a feel for what's happening. So over time, the whole thing looks like this. By the way, guys, they would all look like this, not just one. They would all of the little thingies, the myelin sheets all the way over, they're all the way. And so the signal can actually get as fast as about 100 miles an hour. I'm sorry, 200 miles an hour. So instead of just traveling at 2 miles an hour, they can be traveling at 200 miles an hour. That's an increase of 100 times faster. That's why you put a soccer ball at my feet and you put one at your feet. It's why I'm gonna beat you every time, because I have signals firing probably 150 times faster than you, or maybe 100, maybe you've played a little soccer. Maybe my signals only fire 20 or 30 times faster, or even 10 or 5 times faster. Heck, even if my signals fire twice as fast as you, I'm gonna destroy you, right? So basically, that's what's happening as far as how fast they can go. But I started to say earlier, they can also fire more frequently. So what else happens is that this can generate a signal, let's say once every, whatever, I don't know the exact timings, and I think it depends on what you're actually doing. But as you increase your myelin more and more, what happens is you can actually send a signal. Not only does the signal go up to 100 times faster, up to 200 miles an hour instead of 2 miles an hour, you can send signals a lot faster. So instead of sending a signal and it goes through no matter how fast, you can actually send a signal, send a signal, 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 signal. You can send a whole bunch of signals more faster, and the same signal is do the activity, do the activity, do it, 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 do it. That you can send it up to 30 times faster or more frequently. So if you multiply all those together, the ultimate way that you can send a signal from right here to right here can be a difference of 3,000 times faster, because it can go from 2 to 200 miles an hour. That's 100 times greater, multiplied by the frequency you can send it is 30 times greater. So 100 times 30 is 3,000 times more efficient. So what we're talking about here is like someone who's never played basketball ever compared to Michael Jordan. He's going to be 3,000 times better than someone who's just starting out. Even than someone who's really developed these quite a bit, but they're not near 3,000, and he wasn't there either. He's probably like 2,500 or whatever. In certain things he'd be 3,000, in certain other things he'd be 2,500, 2,000, stuff like that. But overall, his ability to process information as far as maneuvering a basketball and his body to do certain things that a basketball player would do, he was many times, he had much more myelin than other people had. How did he get that? Because he was cut from his high school team, kind of like my soccer thing. I wasn't very good until I was 13. He wasn't even very good until he was like more than 15, 16 or older or whatever. What happened is he practiced more and more and more and more and more. You develop myelin sheath through practice. So you get faster and faster, you become unconsciously competent at something by practice. And so how this stuff really works, this myelin, it's actually when you're younger, like up to 10 or 15, whatever, I forgot, basically when you're a child, you have an amazing ability to develop this stuff really, really fast. So when you start to learn a circuit, your brain just starts pumping out, it starts wrapping this myelin stuff around really fastly. And that's what it does, guys. It's wrapping around the nerve fiber. And it wraps around itself more and more, and it gets more and more and more dense, so it can insulate the circuit better to allow it to travel faster and send out more frequently. So when you're younger, you can develop this stuff much, much, much faster. You can also, your body, we are goal-oriented mechanisms. It's how we're created. It's how our creator designed us. And so if you understand how this stuff works, everything in your life is about goal striving. Even the stuff happening unconsciously you don't even know. Everything in your life right now, which it could, if you go back 10 years, everything in your life right now was a goal. It may not have been the goal you were trying for, but there were goals you developed along the way. So your entire life right now is a representative of everything you've done, all the decisions, everything, all the myelin you've chosen and the certain pathways your brain has created up to this point. So now you can step back and realize over the next day, hour, week, month, year, decade, lifetime, I can actually set an entirely different goal. So when I'm always telling you guys, you were designed for so much more than you can possibly believe right now, that's because you're stuck in what you're believing right now with a certain myelin system. Some of those are serving you really well, keeping you alive. Some of those are have insulated the complete wrong pathway. Like, I'm a loser, I'm overweight, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good as them, I'm not good looking enough, I'm not whatever, my eyes are crooked, I have a mole in my face, I'm balding, my hair color is the wrong color. All these things that you beat yourself up with, all of those things, you're reinforcing the wrong myelin highways, and that's your whole goal, is to develop these big old giant super highways of the stuff you want, not the stuff you don't want. So as you get in, you can actually greatly increase this stuff all the way up till about when you're 50 or so. And even beyond your 50s, you can still develop new myelin, but it's a slower process to get the stuff to wrap around here. So if you just start developing skills and you're 50 or older, you're never gonna get to 3,000, or it's gonna take you much, much longer than it would have if you would have started when you're younger. That's why some of the most talented people on the entire planet, they actually started, you know, girls when they're about 7, boys when they're about 9. That's because when they hit maximum maturity, girls are around 17, boys are around 19. That's why in high school, if you're a woman and you're looking back to high school, you're like, why are all the boys so immature? Because they're like 2 years behind you guys. So I find this stuff fascinating. I was actually more like 3 years behind, because I was like, I had school, or my birthday in the summer, so I was younger than everybody in my whole class, all my years through every grade. It was crazy. So anyway, this, you have to realize with what I just demonstrated to you and what's happening, and it works in your brain too. There's nothing wrong with you, this totally works. Now, there are things you can do to actually help grow myelin even more, like make sure you're getting plenty of antioxidants, stuff like that. So there's even things on the nutrition side. You can grow myelin circuits around your knowledge around nutrition that will help you grow even more myelin. And what does that allow you to do? It allows you to be get more IQ, get more smart more quickly, develop these pathways more quickly, more fast, you know, at a greater pace than really anybody around, or than most people around. And you don't even need all that. The biggest thing is just you to become aware of this. And here's the biggest takeaway I wanted for you guys in this video. And it was for you to realize you can do anything you set your mind to. And one of the biggest reasons people fail to do this, they fail to reach their ultimate goal or their fullest God-given potential. It's because they quit going and they never developed the myelin enough to actually feel like they're actually good enough at something. To persist past those little obstacles, to realize every time you make a mistake, guys, oh, that was a mistake, let's course correct. A little better, course correct. Oh, we totally overcorrected, let's course correct again. Okay, that seems better, course correct. Oh man, holy cow, completely wrong course correct, let's course correct again. So that whole mechanism, you have to fail. You have to fail. Course correct. You have to fail. Course correct. You have to fail. Course correct. Looks like when we did it the first time, and I didn't even plan this, I just started drawing and I wanted to, the only path intention was like the straight through one. It looks like one of the only neurons that was the right one we're supposed to use is this one, coming back. And so, and by the way guys, you could even, your brain may insulate this other circuit of pathways too instead of the red one. So maybe it's not the most efficient, but that's the way you've learned to do it, and you keep reinforcing that over and over and over and over. Like maybe you're learning to drive a car, and when you go to turn your wheel around corner, maybe you do something weird with your hands that's not the most efficient or the easiest way or the best way for your ergonomics or whatever. So maybe you steering the wheel in your car when you're driving, or you go underhanded or over, under, or whatever. Everybody, I've watched tons of people, everybody does different things. It's fascinating to me. How did they learn that? Probably from how they were taught, or they just started developing a habit. And maybe it's not like a race car driver does it, like the red path here, but it still works. And you've insulated so much myelin around this path, now you're gonna be in your car, you're gonna be like, dude, I do this weird. There's something weird, I don't even remember what it is, but there's some weird underhand thing I do because I learned it from a girl in high school, and she learned it from a guy who was like a drag racer. And he taught her how to drive like really fast cars, and she drove his Mustang. I forgot what she used to talk about, but some fast car he had, and he taught her to do some weird, I don't even remember what it is, but I learned it from her and I've been doing it my whole life still. And so, and I don't even know if that's the red path, I don't know, but that's how I learned, and now that's the pathway I've reinforced over and over and over. And I don't have any big need right now to relearn that, but I can. Let's say I go to start racing cars or dune buggies or whatever. Yeah, I know a guy in our industry races around the desert, or a couple guys actually. There's a group of internet marketers, they race around the desert once a year. So maybe if I were to go start doing that, I need to redo my circuits of how to best steer a steering wheel in a car. But I realized I can do that. I don't have to keep doing my old circuit. I could actually learn the red circuit, and then how do I make it where it goes really fast, where it's going to be faster than this old circuit and serve me better? Because I practice it, and I practice it, and I practice it again and again and again and again. And I develop the myelin on that circuit where it is firing faster, and it's a better circuit, it's a better way to do it than this old, slower method. So, the real thing I wanted you guys to take from this is to realize you can do anything, and it's wired into, if you're a human, this is wired into how you work. Just like you're breathing right now, just like your ears are hearing the vibrations that are coming into that camera being sent to a digital signal, then they come out of your speakers or whatever you're listening to, this, your headphones or whatever, and then your brain is interpreting those things as electrical symbols, and they're meaning certain things to you, emotions and visions. And I actually haven't played a lot until just now with, what are you hearing or what are you feeling? So all of those things are happening right now, and you have so much of this that's already happening. Just look at your whole life. You're alive, even if you're dead. You got to where you are, this stuff happened. It's not still happening if you're dead, because your brain doesn't keep growing it. But let me also share this with you guys. Over time, these will get little, especially when you're in your 50s and beyond, your myelin starts to get little tears, little holes in it. So it's not quite as efficient, but it doesn't just go away completely. So you still retain things, and that's even like a circuit you're not even using anymore. You just go to reuse that circuit, and pretty soon your brain, again, if you're past 50, it's a little slower, but it can still start rewrapping the myelin around, and it can still do pretty good. And maybe you're not going to grow this giant set of myelin after that. You might if you practice it enough, but it doesn't take much practice once you've established something to get, it's like riding a bike if you haven't ridden for a long, long time, or drive, like those of you that learn to drive a 5-speed or a stick shift. That's the first car I learned on for like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years or so. And so after that, actually no, I drove a stick for 5 or more years. So I can get in any 5 or 6 or 8 speed car right now, manual transmission, and I can drive them. I will almost never stall it, and even though they're all a little different with the clutch, a little different with everything, that's because even though I don't drive a 5-speed now, I hate manual transmission cars because I'm lazy. Oh, whoa, there it is. We're lazy beings. Everything wants to be automatic. I want my car automatic, not just everything in my brain and my life. My income, residual automatic income, I want the car to be too. But I can step into any manual transmission right now and almost not stall anything. I might stall an occasional like supercar or something if it has a real weird clutch, but probably not because I know how to feel it out before I even start going, to feel when the car wants to start going. So those are things I learned in those first 5 years driving, and my dad actually did that purposely so that for our whole lives we would be able to drive a manual transmission. Where my mom, she never learned. My dad kind of taught her later, and she never spent much time on it, and she's really bad. She had to drive one once. My dad had a broken something from a softball game, a finger or something, and she had to drive his 5-speed truck, and it was like the worst ride ever. And they got there, wasn't smooth. They almost got in a lot of accidents because she kept stalling and stuff, but she was able to make it work just enough to barely squeak by. So you guys can develop these circuits for anything. For finding products, for leading people, for learning about people. You can literally learn, do anything in your life. I don't care what it is. You can set your mind to anything and do it. Now, if you're looking at things like professional sports and you're already in your 20s, 30s or beyond, that's going to be extremely hard for you to build up all the myelin to catch up, because myelin, these circuits also insulate your motor skills. So why are some people able to be more ambidextrous than others? Because they practice more. I was actually forced to practice for 6 weeks when I broke my metacarpal bone right here. This whole thing's in a cast. I couldn't use this hand at all. I had to write and do everything. I didn't even type. I was at a software engineering job at the time. I had to type with one hand, and it drove me crazy. Because I couldn't type like this. I was like, oh man, this is so slow, and I was so inefficient. For a month and a half, drove me crazy. What happened though, I developed tons of, you know, I developed tons of myelin for my left hand mechanical motor skills. And I purposely did the same thing in soccer too. With my left foot, I'm naturally right-footed. I practice more with my left foot than anybody I know. I always did. Whatever I did with my right foot, I do with my left. Very, very conscious about that. So I am very much a dual-footed soccer player. In fact, I'm so dual-footed, I usually play on the left side of the field because I was usually one of the only guys on the whole team that could use my left foot. Because when you're on the left, well, to you guys it'd be the left side, you have to use your left foot to cross the ball into the middle of the field, or to get it to the middle, or to make a lot of plays. You use your outside foot a lot. That's just how the game works. So, and that's really weird because this is actually my right hand, my right foot, but to you guys, I know this is the left side. So, but that, just look at that alone. I'm not a left-footed or left-handed person, but in soccer, I ended up, for most of my 3 decades, I ended up playing on the left side of the field because I developed the side of my body that isn't my naturally genetically gifted side. Now granted, when there's important kicks and certain things I do, I still use my right foot. By the way, it's really that one. This is very strange. I still use my right foot, but the left one is so good that every team I played for, they recognize, if I wasn't in the center of the field, which happened a lot too, I was over on the left side because I could use a part of my body much, much greater than everybody else. Why? Because I just myelinated it a lot better than almost every player I played against. And those that were naturally left-footed, they didn't use their right foot. So they were not balanced like that. So that was actually one of my greatest gifts. I had a lot of great gifts I developed over all the years, but one of them was being basically ambidextrous, so to say, as far as soccer goes. I'm definitely not as ambidextrous hand-wise. I can throw a ball much better right-handed or right-handed than left-handed, but I've actually purposely like messed around with my, you know, my offhand just to develop this more. Just cause I don't know, especially now that I'm learning this, I'm like, dude, I can make my offhand just as good as my good hand. So anyway, guys, you can achieve anything you set your mind to, and really, I think the more proper way to say it at the lower level, you can achieve anything that you practice. And when you practice things, you get more myelin, so you get better and better at it. And when you stop practicing things, it doesn't necessarily die, the skill set doesn't go away, but it stops growing myelin, so it kind of stagnates and stays the same. Now over time, especially as you're into your 50s and things, it does actually die a little bit because you start to get these holes in your myelin. So it's basically, you know, that old saying of use it or lose it. It's actually use it and get more of it, don't use it, and it'll just kind of hang out and eventually slowly die over time. So, guys, I hope this was helpful for you, especially tying this in with the 4 stages of competence or the 4 stages of consciousness. And really, my biggest goal of this was for some of you that are more fascinated by the lower level stuff to realize you can operate so many times more greater than where you're at. I also want you to realize 3,000, that's a gigantic number. Imagine if you're 100 times better, if you're first starting out at something, and all you need to do is get like 100 times more efficient. Imagine how that compounds into, what if you're 100 times more efficient at income? Well, take your income right now and add 2 zeros to the end of it. What does it turn into? That's 100 times greater, much less 3,000 times greater to develop into your potential. So realize this applies to all the numbers in your life, not just finances and things, but also like the soft numbers, like your ability to be a good spouse, a good leader, a good teacher, a good father or mother, a good son or daughter, a good team leader, a good internet marketer, a good copywriter, good on video, whatever. If you guys were to see my first videos I did, like, I think around 7 years ago, the first one was so horrible, it was crazy. It's a totally different night and day difference now. Why? Because I have all these people say, you're so good on video, Jason. Gosh, that's amazing. I do feel inside a part of me was like born to communicate on video. That's because I'm just so excited by it. But if you were to see my first one from 7 years ago, you would have seen this. And you'd have been like, compared to today, where I have this and it's this big old fat red circuit, and it's gonna get even bigger over time because I constantly am working on this skill, you would realize, wow, that's a night and day difference. And it's a difference on the magnitude of hundreds and hundreds, maybe 1,000 times. I might be 1,000 times better now than I was 7 years ago on video. Maybe not. Maybe I'm only 300, 500 times better, 100 times better. I don't know the exact, who knows, but I do know I've myelinated that circuit much more than the average person. There are hundreds of videos I've shot that aren't even anywhere online and nobody's ever even seen them. So this is a skill practiced a lot. Very consciously, very on purpose, because it's a big part of what I do with my life is speak to people. So guys, that is it. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this really got you to realize I want to destroy some of those limiting beliefs inside that you don't think you can do something. You can. All you have to do is practice it, practice it, practice it. Model someone doing it can be a shortcut. So instead of turning the wheel the wrong way, instead of doing the marketing the wrong way, do it the right way, the fast way, and then just keep doing it. And the circuit will go faster and faster, and it will fire off more frequently. Pretty soon, you're destroying things. Your income, you're destroying your limiting beliefs, you're destroying your former income, you're adding zeros to it, and you're destroying your old relationships, you're greatly enriching and improving them. You're destroying the old way you used to interact with your community, and all of a sudden you're adding so much more to your community and everybody around you. So guys, hope this served you well. This is all about myelin and building myelin superhighways. So until next time guys, get out there, go after your goals, because now you have no excuses, you can reach them. And we'll see you next time. To your ultimate success, God bless guys.